You're about to see a recording of a call I did with a former client where he talks about his experience before working with me, while working with me, and his development after. And the interesting thing is that he was already seeing some results with women before. It's not that he couldn't get girls at all, but he didn't feel in control. So he would usually not end up with the girls that he wanted. He didn't feel like he understood what was happening, and instead he would just end up randomly with girls that usually chose him. Now, the end result where he's at now, what you'll see him talk about, is that he just feels like he understands what's going on. He feels like he's in control. He can pick a girl that he's interested in and make something happen. I think that's the ultimate goal of learning this whole thing, this whole getting better at dating, getting better at understanding women, getting better at understanding female psychology. You want to be in a position where when you see a girl you find interesting and she's single, where you can make something happen just because you understand how it works. And with that said, let's go watch that video.
Yo.
Hey Nils, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good.
Maybe you can just explain a little bit on how you got into like the whole dating environment. Like why did you want to get help with dating coaching? So what was your situation before you decided to get coaching? How did your situation change through coaching?
I had seen over a series of dating episodes in my life, I didn't feel like an active participant in the things that would happen for me. It was usually this thing would organically develop, and then I would be confused why it happened, because if I tried to make it happen myself, I didn't seem to have any evidence that was worth making an effort. So I never really felt like I had the caliber of individual that I was looking for in terms of dating, or just striking up conversation with strangers and stuff. I've understood up to this point that there's a social skill involved, but there are other things you need to understand as well. And I just wanted to make sure that I was learning from people who knew what they were doing instead of reading some online blog and trying to apply it and trying to figure it out alone. So I joined the One program first, and that taught open day game approaching and how to handle that and how to pick up conversations and not come off weird and stuff. Basically just to start getting reps in. And then at boot camp, it was more of that and a lot higher frequency, because where I currently live, there's not really a lot of opportunity to do that. It's really weather dependent, and the downtown area where I live is very, very small. But there's at least enough going on the weekends that you could do a couple approaches, but it's not like Philadelphia or something like that. And really what I learned from our coaching is that there's a period, especially in night game, when you're gathering information. So instead of thinking about the outcome, you think about staying in the present moment, engaging with the individual, and just trying to figure out what's their current situation. I remember you talking about determining whether they're just visiting and picking up context clues about whether they have a partner or if they have friends around and where they're staying, because that determines whether or not anything can happen at all. And at the very least, if you hit it off and there's a vibe, then you can exchange contacts and then pick it up later. That night game environment was not something that I ever really had an understanding of. I used to work in a bar and could carry conversation just because being an employee there, I had a little bit of status. But if I were to go into a nightclub alone, there's a lot of pressure to not participate. I remember distinctly one phrase that you used was push into the night. So that's been helpful. So now, I guess it's been eight or 9 months since boot camp. And I've entertained a couple of individuals, we'll put it that way. And so, but it's been mostly through day game and edge of the social acquaintances circle. Mm-hmm. I haven't really seen a lot of luck with night game, except I did get one girl's number, and then it fizzled out a little bit. I have been actively seeing someone for about a year now, and it's a really interesting situation because it organically developed, and then I put down some initial boundaries and said, hey, this is what I can give you, this is what I can't do. And a couple of times I've had to reinforce that, but she still comes around.
Nice.
So that's nice. That's a first in my life for sure.
So what I hear you say a little bit is that the main thing for you was that every time you ended up in a situation where things worked in your favor, it was almost a little bit random and you didn't really fully have the feeling that it's within your control.
I didn't feel like I was in charge of what was happening. Like I couldn't decide, hey, I'm going to go for this, and then it happened. If I did go for things, it usually wouldn't happen. And so if anything did develop, it was usually because I wasn't trying as hard or I got approached, and then I would just go along with it. So I always felt like there's something here that I could achieve for making an educated effort that I've not been able to do before.
Okay, and would you say that has changed now, that maybe it still doesn't always work, but just the feeling of understanding things a bit better and being more in control of the individual steps?
Yeah, and I think that it takes a lot of the pressure off feeling like, well, it doesn't matter what I do here, it's not going to work. Like it's helped shift the belief that I can make an effort here, and whether it goes well or not, I've still put the reps in, and the reps, I identify myself as someone who does these activities, and if it goes well, then cool. If it doesn't go well, then I'm still ahead of the version of myself that wouldn't be taking any action at all.
Yeah.
And that's what unlocked this feeling of I have a lot more confidence now because I'm not imprisoned by some outcome that I'm imagining, instead of just staying present and taking action.
And I think it's so cool how initially you have this desire of making it work with, like you're like, okay, I need to learn how to make it work with every girl, and then realizing that, man, some girls just not available and it's not meant to be, and other girls it's just meant to be, and it's almost, I don't want to say it's enough to say hi, but sometimes just being the guy who says hi and you happen to have a match with a girl is all you really need. I think that's such a beautiful part when you realize that. Last question, did you have any, I mean, you kind of already said something. Did you have any particular thing that you remember about working with me, like anything, any big insight that you got other than what you already said?
Number one, you can feel a lot of anxiety when you make an approach, but you can also you can also avoid a lot of the anxiety by just setting the appropriate expectations up front. To use an analogy for weightlifting, if you get under a really heavy bar without warming up, well, of course it's going to feel really, really heavy. So what you need to do first is adjust your expectation that, hey, this particular thing I am intending to do comes with a lot of potential risk. So how about I set the expectation to, let me do a thing that I know I can do. So that was one of the first lessons. The other lesson, as I mentioned before, was understanding that the night's energy is loud and it's going to push against you, and you have to push back. So you don't just start an approach when you see an opportunity. As soon as you see the first person, if it's the guy standing at the door checking IDs, you say hello to him, ask him how his night's going, or do something social, and try to do that a couple more times throughout the space so that you build up this, hey, I now have this momentum where I recognize I'm a person that has now been doing this, and these people have seen me being social. So now if there's any self-judgment about, oh, I'm not being social enough, oh, I look awkward, I've been standing here for 15 minutes, I don't want to make an approach, and I feel weird doing that because I feel like a weirdo and everybody knows it. Now you don't get to tell yourself that because you've been doing the other stuff first. So that part was really valuable. Another big lesson I remembered as well is that not being too hard on yourself, because you're not gonna snag a win every single time. It's more about enjoying the evening, enjoying the people that you interact with, and if something happens, cool. If not, you did the reps, and that makes you a person that is committed to taking action instead of being someone who gets bent out of shape and potentially losing some self-confidence because you couldn't make anything happen.
It's actually very similar to the gym.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, bro. Thanks for doing this.
Of course. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
If you like what you heard and you also want to get that feeling that Joey has now, where you feel like you understand what's happening when you talk to a girl, you understand what's happening inside her, and you want to be able to make something happen with the girls that you meet, with the girls that you want, then there's a link to my calendar down below. Let's hop on a call. Let's talk about where you're at right now. Let's have a look at exactly what you need to change. Maybe it's just some small tweaks. Maybe there's some things you need to work on for a bit longer. Let's have a chat. Let's figure out what they are. Let's see if I'm the right guy to help you do these things and get there and get you to that position in your life that you should have. Get you to that position where you're actually dating the girls you want, where you have the options that you want, where you have the opportunities that you want, an abundant dating life where ultimately, whenever you want, hopefully in a couple of years after having some fun, you can pick the type of girl that you want and make her your girlfriend.